this was my identity.
Nobody talks about how freaking hard it is to be a dentist. What most people talk about is how this affects the patient. What nobody talks about is how this affects us. Dentistry is ready for this. Now is really the time. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Wellness in Dentistry. We want to say Happy New Year. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today is reflecting on this last year, how you've improved, what you could have done better, and also looking forward into the next year. And this is a really important step for anybody in our industry, or really anybody in the world, to really have true growth and happiness. I am one of your hosts, Dr. Kyle Stanley. I'm a dentist, tech entrepreneur, speaker, and researcher. And I'm joined by your other host, Dr. Martin Mendelson. Martin is a disabled dentist, coach, speaker, and author. And his first book, One Move Makes All the Difference, is available wherever books are sold. And together, Martin and I have helped thousands of dental professionals pursue wellness in dentistry. And we're glad that you're here with us today. Martin, hello.
Hello, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
We
Yes,
should
I
have
feel
had
like we
those
should have
noise
tuxes on
makers.
or something.
Yeah, and that's what I said. We should have noise makers or something.
Yeah. Well, this is always a fun time. For me, I take New Year's I guess very seriously, which is kind of a
Hmm.
weird thing to even say out loud, but
Hmm.
for me it's definitely a time of reflection.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a time of looking forward, making predictions, making goals into the next year. You know that every year I do a letter to myself that I
Yep.
then send to myself the following year, and I send it 5 years later too. And with this letter, what I usually do is look back on all aspects of my life,
Hmm.
from personal health, relationships, family, money, everything you can think of, friendships,
Hmm.
reflect on it, and then also make a goal of where I'd like to be for next year. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you, this week between Christmas and New Year's for me is one of my favorite weeks because usually I take it off
Yeah.
and because I have this self-reflection and I have these great memories of every year. The Christmas lights are still up. My kids are asleep. I'm sitting in my Eames chair in my
Hmm.
living room that you've seen before.
Yeah.
And I'm on my laptop and I'm either reading this letter from last year or writing the letter. And there's something so peaceful about that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Those rituals are important regardless of what it is. And given this topic, it's such a wonderful way to reflect, particularly because you do 1 year and 5 years, right?
Yeah.
And so we always get asked, so why don't you share? Because you use an app or a platform for that, don't you?
Yes, I do. And what is it called? Oh, it's called Future Me.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, and then you were telling me, oh, you could just schedule it on Gmail or on
yeah,
Yahoo or
yeah.
whatever.
You could just schedule it in Outlook, but of course, yours might hold them, as a repository to look back.
The, and the thing about mine is I don't have access to it for a year,
Oh,
which
that's
makes it
super
kind of
cool.
fun.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah,
So I can't look in my drafts or,
yeah,
and see what it is.
yeah.
And honestly, I forget about it every year.
Hmm.
And so getting these emails is like, oh my gosh, an email from myself last year. And
Yeah.
it's so cool to see how I've grown, how I made predictions and didn't hit them or did hit them.
Hmm.
And you and I have talked about this many times, but the first step in solving any problem is having the awareness that
Sure.
that problem exists, number one, then understanding that problem a little more. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think this practice that I have of writing these letters to myself is really a step on self-awareness.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. Particularly what I picked up you saying, which is what really struck me, was you look to all areas of your life.
Hmm.
And so, for those that have been to Lightside Live, our in-person mental wellness course, one of the first things we do is we do this exercise called the Wheel of Life. And it's so important. I even put it in my book. It's the first exercise in the book. And basically it's like a old-fashioned wagon wheel with spokes. And each spoke is an area of your life, like Kyle talked about. And you just basically rank it, where zero is at the axle, 10 is at the wheel. and then you connect all the numbers. And for most people, it's not a contiguous wheel. And then the answer, the question rather is, how's that gonna work for you rolling down the hill? And so I
Yes.
love the fact that you consider all areas because we're not just dentists or spouses or parents or whatever. We are a complex web of different roles that we play.
So what do you think dental professionals should do in this reflection time, at New Year's, looking back at this calendar year that's happened in
Hmm.
our practices, with our patients, with our love life, with our mental health?
Yeah,
What do you
yeah.
think that people
So
should
I
do?
think because you can go online and find a version of the Wheel of Life, but outside of that, I would frankly sit down and just start to make some categories relative to what's important to me. So that might be my practice's financial health, my clinical my clinical abilities this year, my team, my family, my kids if you have them, my relationships. And I would start with the buckets. Then what I would do is I would just rank them 1 to 10 or 0 to 10 if you choose. Zero meaning it's really in the basement, we got a problem, and 10 is it couldn't get any better. And
Hmm.
then mark it with the first number that comes to your mind, and then ask yourself a very important question. Why did I give it that number? And then the follow-up is, what can I do to bring it up by 1 or 2 points? Not
Hmm.
a 5 to a 10, but 1 or 2 points. So I think that's where I would start.
Yeah, and I think what most doctors do is they basically look at their production numbers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's important, however, that we don't just look at production.
Yes.
Let's strictly talk business right now, okay? Before we
Okay.
get into
Sure.
soft skills and
Hmm.
emotional well-being, let's strictly talk
Hmm.
business. We need to be looking at how much money we're taking home, first of all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you grew from 800 to 1 million, but you didn't
Hmm.
take home any more money,
Yep.
you're just kind of spinning your wheels.
Yep.
So we really want to know what our overhead is. And if you're looking eventually for an exit, which I hope all of us are thinking that way, even if you are 35 years old and you've been practicing
Hmm.
for 5 years and you're like, I'm practicing for another 40 years or something,
Yeah.
you really need to start thinking about an exit. And everybody that's buying practices now are buying on EBITDA. They're not necessarily buying how practices were sold, like even when I bought my practice, which is you take whatever the production is, you go between 70 and 90%. If it's high end and in
Hmm.
an attractive area, it's 90%. If it's, whatever area and mostly in network, then it's more of the 70% range.
Yeah.
That's not what's happening anymore. We have true business people now that are thinking about this like any other business, and they're
Yeah.
looking at it at a multiple of EBITDA. So if you
Hmm.
don't know what EBITDA is, first of all, you should look that up and try to know that. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think that makes a heck of a lot of sense because that goes to all kinds of different things. We've talked about this many times on this podcast, so I don't want to get into the details, but an example of this is, well, I need to up my production, so I'm going to start doing endo or placing implants. Well, you
Yeah.
got to look at your efficiency per hour, and that in to just extrapolate your example could ironically be the reason because you're actually putting more numbers on the board, but you're seeing fewer patients. It's taking you longer, and now all of a sudden you're no farther ahead than you were before. So really understanding the production per hour, your profitability, and where to, shall we say, pull certain levers based upon your individual skills and desires is what's going to push that needle and the EBITDA forward.
Yeah, so once you get to there and you figure out, and I don't want to make this too complicated because I know there's many dentists that are just like, numbers are too crazy for me and business is too
Hmm.
challenging. I just want to prep teeth. But if you think very simply at what your production is, you have your CPA or your bookkeeper do a P&L.
Hmm.
I want you to know what your overhead is.
Yep.
And I want you to know how it's growing, how it's going down, if you're adding more team members, because
Hmm.
that directly impacts what you're taking home.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so once you get that, it's important to know that. And in my dream world, I would love that every dentist knows what their overhead is if you ask them walking around,
Yeah.
AACD,
Yeah.
right? You walk around and
Yeah.
you say, "Excuse me, what's your overhead of your practice?" And they say
Hmm.
67%
Yeah.
or 75% or
Yeah.
whatever it is. Because you'll be able to extrapolate what you're going to bring home if you're adding new people, if you're adding new procedures. So I just want to stop there and say that's the business side.
Yep.
Now, I think even more important is all these other aspects of
Mm.
the end of the year looking back. So
Yep.
let's say your practice was doing 1 million last year, and this year you did 1 million again. You're like, I really wanted to grow my practice. But you looked, and the previous year that you did 1 million, you took off, I'll just make up a number, 20 days.
Yep.
And this year you took off 30 days.
Exactly. Yeah.
You made more money.
Yep.
You were more efficient. Your
Hmm.
team worked better. I mean, that is a huge win.
Hmm.
And I would guess that if you took off more days, you were happier. You had more time to
Hmm.
exercise. You had more time with your family and friends or your dog. And
Yep.
that is, I think, where Martin and I really want to reflect
Yep.
is not only looking at your numbers from a financial standpoint, but looking at your numbers from a more holistic standpoint.
Absolutely.
Because I'll tell you, I would rather have $1 million practice and have however many days off,
Right.
3x than 1x, and more time with my kids, and more time to
Hmm. Hmm.
exercise, and time with my friends,
Hmm.
and my feeling about work is much better.
Hmm.
Then going from 1 million to 1,000,004 and being in burnout, feeling
Yep.
stuck,
Yep.
never seeing my family. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's what so many of us do.
Absolutely. And I would also argue that the flip is also true, meaning you made a little less and you took more time off. So if you do the numbers now, you're just flat. And so,
True.
had, so had you worked those additional days, you would have been at or above where you were before. So you got to look at it both ways.
Hmm.
I mean, I look at my own business and I've done really well the last couple of years. My revenue this year was slightly lower than last year, but guess what? I took a hell of a lot more time off.
You sure
And
did.
so, it's like I spent a week in New England. I went on a, pushing myself rafting trip in Colorado. I went to London. I went to Vegas. I'm going to New York. Like I'm having a good time, right?
Yeah.
So that's more important to me than the numbers on a spreadsheet or in a QuickBooks P&L.
And the
Um,
goal of this is to really do this sustainably.
correct.
I think so many people want to grow, 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 and
Yeah.
I want to take my practice from 1 million to 2 million in this next year. And then once I do that, I want to expand and I want to go to 25 chairs. And then once I do that,
Hmm.
I want to be at my second practice and my third practice.
Yeah.
And what I see, and what Martin and I see, is that that is the step to burnout. If
Oh,
you want to
absolutely.
be burned out, just do that. Okay,
Yeah.
that is a road to burnout.
Yeah.
Now, you can still do all those things, but do it in a sustainable way.
Hmm.
So it may take longer to get there, but
Yep.
you're going to finish much higher. It's like the tortoise and the hare.
Yep.
If you just keep chugging away, you do this 1% improvement.
Hmm.
I mean, that can be a huge improvement over time, and you're not going to burn out because remember, when you burn out, for those of you that are watching us, I'm making a little um, slope on a graph,
Hmm.
right? So if you have this really high slope, you go up super high, but then you crash and you come down very low. And it's like you're
Yeah.
starting over.
Yeah.
But if you have a more flat slope, yes, you're going to grow slower, but
Hmm.
over time, you actually finish higher because you don't have those crashes.
Yeah. Totally. 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 And related to the crashes too, when you're looking at the year overall, I think one of the factors that people miss is a question, which is how do I, assuming the start of your week is a Monday, how do I feel on most Sunday nights?
Hmm.
And give that a number. And if the
Mm,
number's lower, then we really need to dig into why that is.
yeah. Well, I think
Now,
that's that self-awareness piece, right?
yeah, totally,
And that's
totally
what
agree.
most dentists don't have,
Hmm.
is they will come to our courses and tell us, oh, it's a three. I mean, I dread Sundays because I
Yes.
know Monday I get there and this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen. But they don't actually sit and write that stuff down and
Hmm.
talk about how it makes them feel. So you walk in, what actually happens? Oh, well, my front desk comes to me and tells me that the lab case is late for the very first patient. Okay, how would you like it to be?
Hmm.
Okay, you want it to be this way. What are some things that we can do to cause that? And if we can't control it, then how can we control then our emotions on it?
Right. Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that was what I had to learn was my first my first round of practice management was how can I control everything?
Hmm.
Which is just, and you should try to do that too. But then you get to this point where you go, oh shit, I can't actually control everything.
Right.
So then the only option is having self-mastery on how you are going to react, how you are going to live between that stimulus and the response, which I learned from Martin.
Yeah. And even so many of us will either look or purposefully not look at our schedule for Monday.
Yeah.
And I've had so many clients, and as many clients as I've had, it's almost as many different variations of this. Because you were talking about control and self-awareness. And so some of them, their self-awareness was simply around, I want to know what's happening on Monday, but they wouldn't look at their schedule till Sunday night, and then they would ruminate over it. But they weren't ruminating over what was on the schedule, just in other words, what was specifically on the schedule. They were just ruminating over the schedule. So we
Mm,
talked about looking at it on Friday instead of Sunday night.
okay.
Others, it was the opposite, where it was like, don't look at it, right? But of course, you have to have systems in place. Like you just gave the example of the late lab case. Like, if that's happening on a Monday morning more than once, we need to look at our systems
Yeah.
relative to follow through and then potentially back things up. I was actually working with a client this week where they were having this rash for some odd reason of, as they described it, patient self-directed treatment changes, where they
Mm,
would come in and they'd be like, "No, I don't want to do that today. I want to do this," and it was usually based on finances. So what this client of mine is going to do, she has a great relationship with their billing person. They're going to back up when they look at certain dollar amount cases to then check in with them, sooner, or shall I say farther away from that appointment, to create more of a system to reduce the opportunity of that happening. So
yeah.
kind of one example, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's looking backwards,
Yep.
analyzing where you've came from, how you feel,
Hmm.
how you've not only grown as a dentist or a business owner or an associate, but also how you've grown as a person.
Yeah.
And, I'm probably biased, but for me, when I actually grew as a person, even if I made less money, I was way happier.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah.
The first
And
time that I made a lot less money doing dentistry was when I started to work on Pearl, my AI company.
mhm,
And so I had a lot less money coming in from my practice. I had a little bit of money coming in from Pearl, but it was very low because it was a startup.
yeah.
But I had so much more time.
Yeah.
And it was funny how my relationships were better. I would go to the gym in the middle of the day. I was
Hmm.
still practicing dentistry, but now
Yeah.
part-time.
Yep.
And I remember and I made a lot less, like a third less than I
That's a lot.
made
Yeah.
before.
Yeah. And you have a family. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was way happier. And my
Yeah.
family was happier too. And
Totally.
so I want you guys to take into account not only our clinical numbers, but how you feel in your
Hmm.
work, how you can be there for other people, how you're sleeping, how you're
Yeah.
eating. That's a more holistic way of doing this job of dentistry, this profession
Hmm.
of dentistry, for a more holistic, a more
Yeah.
longer term way.
And if you really want to get into it too, you can get really into the details relative to what's taking up your clinical time and rank those procedures. I really
Oh, I
like
like
doing this
that.
stuff. I don't like doing this stuff. And so for not all, but many of us have clinical control. If you're associate, maybe not so much. But if you do have that level of control, then you can ask yourself, okay, so if I really like doing this and I don't like doing this. Well, how can I make my life so that I'm doing either all of this or more of this and less of the stuff or none of the stuff that you don't like if you have that clinical control? Because if you have the control, there are no rules. You can do whatever the heck you want.
You know, that would be a good exercise that people could do would be run the report from last year,
Hmm.
separate it by procedure,
Yep.
and then see the amount or the percentage of money or percentage of procedures that
Yeah.
each one gives.
Yeah.
And it'd be fairly easy to do that with modern day practice management
Totally.
systems. And then take that and say, you know, let's say 60% of what you made was based on single unit restorative or something.
Hmm.
25% was based on hygiene, exam and x-rays, right? And then another however many percentage was I did this much endo, I did this much removable, you know,
Yep.
whatever. And then rank those. Because what if 60% of your income is coming from something that you hate?
Exactly.
I mean, it'd be hard to get rid of it, but maybe you
True.
could do less of that if you started doing more marketing on the things you like. And let's just say you like
Yep.
doing aligners, right?
Yep.
So more marketing, or maybe you learned better case acceptance or
Hmm.
how to talk to patients better or
Hmm.
getting your staff involved with it.
Totally.
I know one thing with my dad, when my dad did a 2 year kind of like a residency in ortho, but it was done on the weekends. So it was like
Hmm.
every month for 2 years, he did a course, basically,
Yeah.
for ortho. So he did comprehensive ortho, braces, aligners, everything. And when he came and brought this to his practice at first, it was kind of overwhelming for the team because he had never done ortho before.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what he did was he found someone that was really interested in learning this and doing
Hmm.
it. And he gave them some ownership.
Hmm.
And she turned into this ortho wizard to
Hmm.
where, you know, ortho is a very delegatable
Yeah.
part of dentistry. She did a ton of things. My dad had to come in and, you know, put the brackets on and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But then he would just say, hey, change this wire to this wire, put on this
Mhm.
rubber band, do this or
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And she loved it. But
Absolutely.
I think it was because he gave her some ownership of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing to take a look at relative to your overarch, all of your tasks. So if you're a practice owner or in partnership and you look at all the administrative tasks that you have, what are you doing? How much time is it taking? Do you like it or not? And is it delegatable?
Oh, that's a good point.
You
Yeah.
know? So, like in my online course in lesson two, I actually give people very straightforward spreadsheets to actually look at what it is they're doing on a regular basis, both personal and professional. I have two different versions
Yeah.
to understand what's taking up your time. Um, we mentioned this before, some of our recent episodes. I brought on a virtual assistant last 2, 3 months ago. Best thing I've ever done. So between September 1st and October 31st, I was in Austin, Grand Cayman, London, Tampa, New Orleans, Vegas, and I think I'm forgetting something. In the middle of all that, we flipped my website over from direct sales of my book to the links. We, started email campaigns for awareness for book. And yes, I was there directing everything, but he's the one that did it.
Mm,
Now, if I was bearing that burden while I was traveling that much, and by the way, only two of those trips were fun, the rest was work,
mm,
I would have been buried, burned out, felt exhausted, but that wasn't the case. I felt empowered because I was leading the train forward, not managing the day to day.
hmm Uh,
So,
is is he booking your flights?
no, not at this
Okay.
point. Not at this point. Yeah.
Okay. So let's bring this into land. Let's think about summarizing. I think when I look back on what we've talked about, we keep going back to self-awareness.
Yeah. True.
It was like money self-awareness, personal self-awareness, delegatable self-awareness,
Hmm.
percentage of production self-awareness.
Yep.
I think that that's what this week is for me is
Hmm.
finishing the calendar year, having the self-awareness, being real
Hmm.
with myself,
Yeah,
and then from that self-awareness, realizing which skills I need to learn in order to make this next year even better.
absolutely.
Would you
Absolutely.
agree?
I would. And that kind of goes into goals relative to, okay, so what do I want to now go and do? And
Yeah.
how am I going to parse that out so that I'm making progress? You know, one is always greater than zero. So if you're making even a little progress, that's progress. Um, so that you can move forward. I will say the one thing we haven't said literally that I'd like to bring in now is as you're going through this process, write down and think about the gratitudes that you have for the achievements
Hmm.
because that's all part of the reflection and
Yeah.
how grateful you are that you whether you made more money, less money, etc. You have a roof over your head. Hopefully you have your health, your family, etc. And so those things need to be recognized, and it's very important not just in a general sense, but also for your mental health to call
Hmm.
out those gratitudes so you're focusing more on the stuff that went well versus beating yourself up over the stuff that maybe didn't go so as well in
Yeah,
your
this
opinion.
has been a big thing in my house recently. Just the other weekend, my wife and I had a kid-free weekend, which was kind of fun. And we were talking. And what's nice with them, without having kids around, is you can
Yeah,
actually have deep conversations.
yeah,
And we were talking, and I said, it's been really nice because I've seen in both of us how grateful we are many times now. And it
hmm,
was interesting what my wife said. She said, it's easy to be grateful when you make good money, your family's healthy,
yeah,
you have a roof over your head,
yeah,
kind of can do what you like.
yeah,
I was like, yeah, you're right.
yeah.
The hard thing is to be grateful when you're in the depths, right?
It's true, but what I will also say is that's a skill. And so
Yeah,
um without getting into it, there was something that could have happened this week that would have had a very significant impact on my life.
yeah.
And I chose to look at it as, well, whatever happens, I'm very grateful that I have the means to make a life change if that is what I'm forced to do.
Yep.
And so I chose, even though what could have happened would have been devastating, I chose to look at it from a control perspective relative to what I can do in my own life for my own family to keep us together whole and happy, frankly.
Hmm.
So yeah, you're right. I mean, she's right. It's a lot easier to do when things are going well. You know your skill has taken hold when the crap starts happening and you're still looking for the silver lining.
Well, that's what I was complimenting my wife on because she's going through a health problem right now. I haven't even told you this.
Mhm.
I'll tell you more specifics off the air. Um, but what's nice is I'm seeing her struggle with certain things, but then say, at least I have this, or at least we can.
Yeah,
She's been looking on the positive,
yeah,
and it's so fun to witness,
yeah,
and
yeah.
so nice to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And also, too, just recently we had my son's friend's mother just passed away from cancer.
Oof.
Okay, so our good friends that we go camping with and stuff, um, and she's like my age, like 40,
Yeah.
low 40s, right?
Yeah.
And we kind of had our cry about it and really turned it into gratitude of like, wow, I'm so thankful that we're both here.
Yeah.
And also that like we can support them, we
Oh
can
yeah.
rally around them and
Yeah. Yeah.
that kind of thing. But it's been so cool to see in my family how when I started on this personal growth journey, I've seen it reflect on my wife. My wife
Yeah.
hasn't gone on a personal growth journey,
Yeah.
but she's kind of experiencing it by osmosis.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of that stuff sticks with you. I didn't get a chance to tell you this either, but when I was away last week at my mastermind, I started getting texts, 4 houses down caught on fire,
Oh my gosh.
and it's a total loss.
Oh my gosh.
And I had a house fire when I was a kid.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And there's this smell of a house fire that is very specific.
Hmm.
And every morning when I walk my dog, I am just blasted with that smell. And I ran
Mm.
into our neighbor, Christine, and whatever we can do, et cetera, et cetera. And so we were kind of commiserating because she said to me, she said, "Do you ever get over it?" And I thought that was a very interesting thing. And I said, "Well, first of all, our house fire was nowhere near as significant as yours."
Mm.
She said, I heard, she said, "I heard you say that." She said, "But I'm just kind of curious because you mentioned how it brought everything back." And I said, "Honestly, I looked to the good points. It solidified in my mind as a very young boy the just the gift of firefighters that we have in our
Mm.
society and certain other things. So it's not that the bad stuff ever goes away. It's just the way you choose to engage with the bad stuff over the years,
Totally.
you know?
Yeah. Well, everybody, this was a fun talk. I think
Yeah.
at the end too was kind of nice and
Yeah.
didn't know it was coming.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
we are so thankful to have you guys as our listeners, as our friends and colleagues, and we appreciate you showing up every week, listening. One thing we would ask is if you subscribe, that really helps us. Follow both of us on Instagram. We've got a lot to share. We love helping our colleagues. And we'll see you next year. It's going to be a great year, and we've got a lot of cool stuff coming. So stay tuned, and we'll see you on the next episode of Wellness and Dentistry.
Bye-bye.